My wife and best friend of almost 20 years. I work out of town and am not expected to return until tonight. Tomorrow, we were supposed to go on a 2-day road trip, but things at work were slow, so I went home. The trip started yesterday afternoon and was intended to give us some alone time after a busy summer with family and friends. When I got home, there was a truck in my driveway that I didn't expect. I'm at a complete loss. I don't know what to do. Realizing that my neighbor had recently inquired about my opinion of the new truck, I assumed he was wrong and didn't give it much thought. However, as soon as I saw the truck, I felt uneasy. I loved and trusted my wife, but the feeling was strong. I crept around the side of the house and went into our bedroom, where the window was open, and I could hear them. As I got closer, I looked out, and my worst fears were realized. They were on my bed, completely nude. I've been fighting the urge to do something I know I'll regret at this time. I'm sure I care about what happens to me. I spent the night at my family's cabin drinking everything. On my way home, I thought about confronting her, but I'm not ready. I can't stop thinking about violence and getting angry. I'm not in a good place right now to see her. I've been staring at my 60 bottle of rum for an hour. I want to get wasted and forget about it, but I don't want to make bad decisions because I know that this is a turning point in my life. My life will be shaped by these days, which is why I'm here. I need help, and I'm not ready to talk to family or friends, so I'm reaching out to strangers. An update on this world shows me how much help and advice I've received, and it's amazing how many amazing people are willing to help strangers. It gives me hope for the future when I most need it. However, the drawback of all this help is that I'm finding it difficult to respond to people. I have more than 600 unread private messages and a few. In addition to my small update, if you can't tell, I'm feeling much better today. The pain has almost completely gone away, but I still feel like I was punched in the gut. I've started looking forward to it after 2 days. I would like to thank each and every one of you individually, and I will do my best to do so, but it will take time. I will start by thanking everyone for their kind messages and helpful advice, which means a lot to me. I've noticed a few comments and questions that keep coming up, so I wanted to clarify. When I mentioned wife and best friend, I was talking about the 2 roles my wife has played in my life. The other guy wasn't my best friend or anyone I knew, so I didn't get a good look at him, but based on my quick glance and his car, I don't think he is someone I know. We don't have children, but we expected to have them soon despite the fact that we had. I'm going to thank my neighbor Suli just as he did for me because I recently sold our house and we were planning to move closer to my job in September when the new owners took possession. A few examples that come to mind are texting unusually late at night and frequently going out for drinks with friends after work. These were unusual for her, but I was relieved that she was interacting with others. She also went to yoga once a week, but she didn't pay because one of her coworkers was the instructor, and she helped with. We frequently answered each other's phones, and if we were getting closer, she would get a call from an unknown number and hang up as soon as I answered. We get a lot of spam calls, but they usually come from telemarketers or debt collectors looking for the previous owner of the number. It's rarely a hang-up. The update is currently in progress. During setup and cleanup, I also thought she looked stiff for someone who went to yoga. I was supposed to be home last night, but I decided to reply to my wife's text because we are not allowed to have phones on site, so it was reasonable for me to only text her. She knows how easy it is for me to sneak in some texts, so I wrote to her explaining that I needed to travel to one of my company's room remote sites. I realized that I needed to remember that and trust that he will always be there for me without judgment just as I would be for him, even though we disagree on occasion. He truly sets the standard for what a true friendship is. I told her that I would cancel all reservations and reschedule later because I wouldn't be able to call her until the end of the weekend. She offered to go with her best friend this weekend, so I'll go with her to the romantic bed and breakfast on a vineyard that I've reserved. I knew it wasn't her best friend, but she made me think that they would be there. I told her that I had already given it to my brother and his wife because it was non-refundable and they would reimburse me 1 month. I was thinking about getting a divorce, but I don't see any other option. Fortunately, the hotel allowed us to switch from the honeymoon suite to a room with 2 beds for the romantic one. There is also a gorgeous lake nearby that offers boat rentals, so this has turned into a much-anticipated fishing trip with my brother. This means I'm free for the weekend and won't have to write or talk to her for a few days, which reduces stress and gives me more time to reflect. I'm following a lot of the advice on this site and starting to speak with lawyers at the very least to prepare for what I believe is inevitable. I want to do it right. His wife has a friend who works as a couples counselor and is available to speak with me on Monday. I don't think it will change my mind, but it might help me sort out some of this mess. I've never thought of her as someone who would try to deceive me, but I also never expected her to cheat, so I think I should be prepared for anything. Thank you. Once more, I'm going to try to make the most of my weekend update too. A lot has happened in the last few days, so I'll start with the less important things. My brother Matt and I drove nearly 5 hours to the vineyard-based bed and breakfast. I'm grateful that he was there for me at this time. It was more of a venting session than anything else, but it helped me decompress after I spent most of the drive complaining to him that all I wanted was some alone time. He wanted to go out to dinner, so I stayed in the room while he left. The owner of the B&B was aware of our plans to go fishing and was gracious enough to pack us a small cooler with food and drinks. This was a nice gesture to make the romantic package more manageable for the two brothers. Fishing wasn't great, but we both caught a couple of trout that had to be released because of their size, so the B&B snacks were perfect. He also made arrangements to rent a boat for the following day, Saturday, when we hit the water. We went to all the vineyards and fruit stands to buy food and wine cases for Matt's wife Jennifer that evening. On Sunday, we drove back to Matt's house, which is about an hour away from mine. Jen was waiting for us when we got there, and we all sat down and opened a bottle of white wine that had been sitting in the cooler for me. This marked the official end of the weekend. Jen told me that she had chosen to spy on my wife while we were away. Jen told me on Saturday night, while texting me messages saying she loves and misses me, that she was visiting family in my town and stalking my wife. She stayed after she saw my wife leaving his apartment on Sunday morning and took a few pictures of them kissing and hugging before getting into her car. I don't want to see them. I also learned that the guy had spent the entire night at my house on Friday, but she arrived just as he was leaving on Saturday morning. That pretty much seals the deal for me. If she can switch it off so quickly and tell me she loves me while dating someone else, I doubt I'll ever trust her again. Nevertheless, I decided to keep my composure and act logically instead of emotionally, so when Jen told me Sharon was coming over for dinner, she set up an appointment with Sharon the counselor. To be clear, Sharon had never met my wife and this was my first time meeting her. Sharon was a very nice person, and after dinner, Sharon and I got along well. Sharon was really helpful because she was a great listener and made me feel like I didn't need to be guarded. It felt therapeutic to be as open about my emotions as I am with my brother. It was just different and much needed. This is the same reason I enjoy writing on Reddit. It's a way for me to vent and work through some of the chaos in my head. Our hour-long walk lasted, and Sharon's only real advice was to not put off talking to my wife. Later that evening, Jen and Matt invited me to spend as much time as I needed with them. I knew that Matt and I had an expiration date for living in close quarters, so I contacted my boss, who was able to place me in company housing. I've been staying there every other week for a while, but I need to leave on my days off, something he arranged for. She warned me that the longer I wait, the more difficult it will be to talk to her about this. I'm usually good under pressure. I woke up yesterday and said goodbye to Matt and Jennifer. I drove home thinking what if he was there when I arrived. I assumed that it would be okay. I've decided to reschedule with Sharon for later this week. I thought our walk would be enough for the first session, and she agreed. I spent the night of Sunday lying in bed considering how to approach this. I struggled with this because even the imagined scenario made me angry or depressed. I decided to wing it. Simply put me back in my angry state before I decided to do a drive-by. First, neither his truck nor my wife's car were there, so I went inside and gathered some essentials and things I didn't want to part with, mostly old family heirlooms and photos. I packed everything into my truck and drove to the guy's apartment. Her car wasn't there either, but his truck was, so I decided to ride her and find out where she was. She said she was going to get groceries, but I don't trust her enough at the moment that I drove past the grocery store to make sure. Presence I feel horrible admitting that I did that, but it is the only way I can be sure of anything. I wrote her again, telling her to come home because we needed to talk. She asked what was wrong, and I just told her to be honest. I then turned off my phone, and when she got home 15 minutes later, she came over to kiss and hug me as she always does. When I turned away, she asked what was wrong again, so I told her to be more honest with me, and she pretended she didn't understand what I was saying. Was saying, okay, if you can't be honest, I'm leaving. She panicked and asked, "Are you talking about yoga?" I assumed it was a beginning. When I asked what she was talking about, she replied that she hadn't been to yoga. Here's a summary of the rest of the conversation. If you weren't going to yoga, where would you go? I was taking walks to decompress because I had been really stressed lately. Why are you so stressed? Why did you lie to me about what you were doing? I didn't know how to tell you, so you decided to. I didn't mean to lie when you told me you were going for a walk to relieve stress. I was afraid that my stress would make yours worse. However, I don't feel stressed, so it seems like you aren't telling me everything.
What do you mean?
I believe you're lying about more than just skipping yoga. I'm asking you to be honest again because you've already lied to me, so it won't work. I'm at a loss for words. Oh, are you referring to last weekend when I went out for drinks with some friends and got? I had a feeling that this bothered you, but I didn't know she went out for drinks or stayed out late because I was at work a few hours away. Was that all a lie, or did you go out for drinks that night but didn't see her best friend, who she was supposed to be with, and I just drank alone? Do you drink alone? Okay, maybe I have a problem, maybe we can talk about it later, or I'll leave. I'm at a loss for words, so I got up and left. She probably thought this was the same thing as when I usually go for a drive to avoid her, but when she realized I had taken my clothes, toiletries, and Xbox, she started blowing up my phone. I told her that I had given her a chance to be honest, but she refused, so there was nothing else to say. She begged and pleaded with me to come home and talk about this face to face, saying she had no idea why I was upset or what I thought she did. Hearing her repeatedly say she loved me and would never hurt me made new. When she called me back about 40 times before I was ready to respond again, she asked if I had spoken to Karen, her best friend. When I asked why, she said, "Come home," and I said, "I don't want to say this over the phone." I agreed, and I drove around for a little while longer to lower my heart rate before returning home. The words were always comforting, and I fully believed them. Now, however, they were a dull, jagged knife slicing through my heart in the most devastating way. I assume you talked to Karen because I didn't say anything. A few weeks ago, while you were at work, we went out for drinks. A couple of guys started buying us drinks, so we just went along with it. When one of them tried to kiss me, I quickly pulled away and told him I was married. I felt bad about it, but I'm a fool and chose to keep it from you. Karen hooked up with the other guy and gave his friend my phone number without my consent. He's texted me multiple times since, but I've never responded. I was surprised when she showed me her phone, which was text-free except for her mother and me. I looked at her photos, which were also clean, but then I went through the ones that were deleted and saw one of a guy I didn't recognize. He was the one who tried to kiss me. Why did you take a picture of him? I wasn't being foolish, so that's not a reason. I'm not sure if that's all you want to tell me or if there's anything else that's. I got into my truck and drove off, not wanting to be that sliver of truth. She ran outside to stop me, but I was already out of reach. I went to a nearby park and sat on my tailgate eating lunch, wondering what to do next. While there, I began to remember other details that I should have remembered, such as the fact that I was working a weekend shift and that my wife went to bed early. My wife went to the club with some of her girlfriends, and I woke up at 4 a.m. but when I called, she wasn't home yet. After calling her multiple times and getting no response, she called me again about half an hour later and asked if I could come get her. When I picked her up, she told me that they had tried calling a cab but had failed. A couple of guys, including a new friend, approached her and offered to drive her home, but I wanted to go home first. When they got to the guy's house, her married friend entered a room with one of the men, and my wife said that she had been looking for her for a while before giving up and waiting in the kitchen with her roommates. I assumed it was over when she called and said she couldn't hear her phone. We argued about it, and she said she was disgusted by her friend's behavior, so she cut him out of her life. She also went to see a close friend in a different city for a planned girls' night, where I was informed that 4 girls were getting wasted while watching movies in their pajamas. She then called me at around 1 in the morning. We talked for about 20 minutes, and she kept telling me that they were having a great girls' night. Then, I heard a male voice in the background, and when I asked who it was, she denied hearing anything. When I asked, she said, "Oh yeah, X took a couple of guys with her," but it happened so loudly that she couldn't deny it. She was intoxicated, and with 3 hours left, I had no choice but to trust her again. We argued about why she hadn't told me they were there, and she vowed never to put herself in a similar situation again. After remembering all of those details and our conversations about them, I was ready to try again when I turned back to my phone and it rang almost instantly. I answered, and she yelled for me to come home. I drove back to the house, and when I got there, she was crying and sitting on the couch, saying, "I'm so sorry." When I apologized for what she had done, she started rocking back and forth like a crazy person, and it took her about 5 minutes to catch her breath before she spoke. "I lied about the guy who attempted to kiss me, okay? Please describe what happened that night when the 4 of us went back to his place and played around." I knew it was more than that, but hearing her say it made me feel lightheaded. I thought I was having a panic attack, so I went to the bathroom and washed my face in cold water until everything returned to normal. "What did you do? Do you really want me to tell you? Let's not go into the graphic details, but it was awful, and yes, I'm no longer playing this game. If I tell you the truth, please allow me to make things right. We had an affair while you were out of town for work, and it has been going on for almost a month. He is married, and they are about to get a divorce. Does he know you are married? If he is having an affair, yes." She started crying again, and it took a few minutes before she could speak again. "We met again and had sex. I'm deeply sorry, I love you, and I will do anything to make up for this one time. If his marriage is failing, does that mean you believe ours is too? Is that what you told him? No, I don't think ours is failing. I am so foolish that I hate myself. Please don't leave me. I can fix it, But how would you react if you were in my or his wife's shoes? If you knew the truth, could I trust you to mean what you say? I messed up and I won't do it again. If you were his wife, wouldn't you want to know the whole story? If you think that's what you want, should I call her? She tried calling, but never received a response. A few minutes later, her cell phone rang, displaying Karen's work. I was shocked to see it wasn't Karen, so I asked if it was him. She replied that it was, and like the coward that he is, he said, "Oh, I must have the wrong number." I replied, "No, this is the husband of the girl you've been cheating on, and I'm going to let you speak with her because she has something to tell you." I handed the phone to her, telling him everything, and he knew the whole truth. We concluded that it was only a fling, and you shouldn't get in touch with me again. Asked to see her phone before she hung up. "Which divorce lawyer do you use?" "I'm not getting divorced, but you didn't tell your wife that you were okay."
Then, could I talk to your wife?
"I think she should know about this as much as I do." "Please, man, I didn't know she was married. Don't ruin my marriage because you ruined mine. It's only fair to tell your wife. She's at work right now, but I'll tell her everything when she gets home."
I promise. Okay, you do it.
That's where I hung up. Knew his wife's name and where she worked, so I had my wife call and ask her to come to work. She did, and I told her to sit down. The woman said she was going to leave for the day and would call my wife back from her car.
She did his wife.
What's going on with my wife? I have a terrible thing to tell you, and I don't want to cause any accidents, so please don't drive. Oh my God, did something happen to his name? No, he's at your apartment right now. I'm coming clean to my husband. According to the comments here, she went silent for about a minute before saying, "If this is some sick joke, I will find out who you are." She hung up not even 10 minutes later, and my wife offered counseling and promised to never leave my side. She even offered me sexual favors, which was exactly what I expected. She then suggested that we take that vacation as a treat, citing the need for some time away and the need to spend quality time together because my work schedule has been separating us lately. When I told her everything, she collapsed to the floor crying and started saying that she didn't deserve to live. She said that I should kill her now because she's too bad to be with anyone. This continued for a while, and I stayed for 4 hours. She didn't expect me to tell her that I had gone anyway, or that I had already scheduled counseling for myself. She also didn't expect me to tell her that I had busted her on my own bed, which I could only imagine. I called Karen and told her that her cheating friend is suicidal and that she should come and watch her. I left after spending hours listening to her make excuses before offering to hug, cuddle, or even do sexual favors if I would just stay and work this out with her. It has been almost a day since that incident, and I haven't spoken to her since she has been phoning and texting me all day. Her friends and family have also called and texted me throughout the day, each with a different justification or request for sympathy.
Her father is there.
Only one person has written to me, telling me that I must do what is best for me and that he will always love me as a son no matter what. Reading that made me cry for the first time since this whole thing began. Tomorrow, I'll see Sharon, my counselor, and Thursday, I'll see a lawyer. I think you can guess where this is going, but until it happens, I'm not sure about anything. The last week was really eventful. I've been bouncing between camp and my brother's house, trying to be as little of a burden as possible. So I only stay at night when I have an early appointment. My employer has given me permission to take a few weeks off for personal reasons, which has been very helpful. I've continued to see Sharon, the therapist. I've seen her 3 times so far, and though I don't think our sessions will be very fruitful, I do think they will give me a chance to decompress, so I'll continue for the time being. Last Thursday, I spoke with a lawyer about there. The lawyer advised me not to confront her until I had served her with the documents, but it is now too late. I made a list of all of my assets and finances, including debt, and then I went to the bank and asked them to suspend our accounts. This would prevent anyone from withdrawing money unless the other person is present. We both have our pay deposited into our personal accounts, so neither of us will be able to access new money, only old and shared funds. Her friends hosted a family get-together at the cabin this past weekend, so I had to break the news to my family. At least it's out in the open now, and I can involve them in my recuperation. Everything was going smoothly until Saturday night at around 8 p.m. My father and I decided to take a walk around the property, out of sight of the driveway, and barely in the forest when my wife's car came as we were all gathered around the fire. My brother Matt promised to take care of it. My father offered to deal with her, but I said I would. My wife Kate came running over to me, bawling, and she immediately reached for an embrace. I did not stop her, but I did not give her one, and she begged me to just talk. I heard my wife yell at my brother to move out of her way. She had a couple of friends with her, and they were all yelling at Matt, telling him to mind his own business. He made an admirable effort, but they proved too much for him to handle. Kate then pulls out a piece of paper and starts listing the ways she promises to make amends to me again. She offered everything on the first day, including counseling and sexual requests, but she caught me off guard when she said she didn't want to keep it. I agreed, and we walked around the property trails to get some privacy. Kate tells me that the other guy's wife left him, telling me that he called and threatened to commit suicide, blaming everything on her. This week, when I was trying to envision my life after divorce, she said that she wants us both to quit our jobs, move abroad, and open the small beach bar we've always talked about. She said she'd leave right away if I went with her. To put this into perspective, I thought that if I'm already going through the effort of a major change, I might as well add another piece to it and do exactly what I want. Hearing her want the same thing just made me miss her. I told her that I would be willing to talk on the phone but couldn't promise anything else because I wanted to be with her. That's when I realized I needed to end the conversation, so I escorted her back to her car where her friends were waiting. It helped her relax enough to leave, and we've spoken on the phone every night since. She always cries and begs for another chance, and I get upset with her for what she did and hang up. I'm currently having a hard time accepting the fact that I miss her a lot because she was my best friend for decades. Anyone to talk to is really challenging. It's heartbreaking to know that all of our hopes and aspirations have been dashed, and all I want is to move on and start over somewhere else. I wanted to be with her, but she destroyed our relationship by denying me that.